I want to begin this to the south by telling you a story which I did not write. It was written by a southern writer, though. A man who lived down in Washington, North Carolina, which the locals like to call the original Washington. The man's name was Edmund Harding. The story concerns this lady who lived over in Twain County. She had a mule named Horace that she was very fond of. One day she went out to the barn and Horace didn't even look up. He had his chin down on the ground. So she went back in and called Dr. Satterfield over in Eatonton. And she said, "Doctor, something is wrong with Horace. I wonder if you could come take a look at him." He said, "Oh, now, Fanny Lamb, it's after 6 o'clock, and I'm eating my supper. You just go out and give Horace a dose of mineral oil. And if he's not better, tomorrow I'll come take a look at him." She said, "Well, how do I do that?" He said, "Well, you use a funnel." She said, "Well, I'm afraid he might bite me." He said, "Oh, Fanny Lamb, now you should know about these things. You're a farm lady. He won't be able to bite you because you administer the mineral oil in the other end." "Well, how do I do that?" He said, "Well, you use a funnel." So Fanny Lamb went out to the barn. Horace still had his chin down on the ground. She looked all around for a funnel. Nearest thing she could find was Uncle Bill's fox hunting horn. A beautiful gold-plated instrument with gold tassels hanging from it. Well, she thought necessity is the mother of invention. So she very carefully placed the horn where it should go. Then she reached around behind her to the shelf where the medicines for the farm animals were kept. And she felt around and got a hold of a bottle that she thought was mineral oil. Turned out it was turpentine. Well, she administered a liberal dose of turpentine through that horn. Well, Horace's head jerked up with a sudden interest. Then he reared up on his hind legs, pawed the air with his front legs, came down, knocked out the stable door, jumped 5 strands of barbed wire, and went hightailing it down the road. Well, now Horace was in considerable pain. So every few jumps he'd make, that horn would blow. It was an amazing sight. Horace bounding along with that horn in its unusual location. The gold tassels waving in the breeze. And the mellow notes issuing from the horn. All the dogs in the neighborhood knew when they heard that horn blowing, it meant Uncle Bill was going fox hunting. So they all piled out and started chasing Horace down the road. Well, by this time it was nearly dark, and the procession was approaching the inland waterway. Well, so the bridge tender heard a horn blowing. So he went out and raised the drawbridge. Horace and all those dogs went right overboard. But it turned out that the bridge tender was running for sheriff of Twain County that year. But he garnered only 7 votes. Seems the people decided that any man who did not know the difference between a boat coming down the inland waterway and a mule blowing a horn had no business holding any office of public trust. Now, as I said, I did not write that story, but I would have if I thought of it. Now, when I grew up in Hannibal, I think it was typical of many southern towns, slavery was still a fact of life. You know, when slavery perished, my mother had been in daily touch with it for 60 years. And as kind-hearted and compassionate as she was, I don't think she ever understood what a bald, grotesque, and unwarrantable usurpation slavery was. Well, how could she realize it? She had never heard slavery attacked from any pulpit, but she had heard it defended and sanctified from 1,000. As far as her experience went, the wise, the good, and the just were unanimous in their conviction that slavery was right, righteous, a sacred pet of the deity, and was a condition which the slave himself, daily and nightly, should be thankful for. Manifestly, training and association can accomplish strange miracles. Now, once again, in Hannibal, the typical southern town, everybody was poor but didn't know it. And everybody was comfortable and did know it. Everybody was affable to everybody. Nobody put on any significant airs. And in this small town, where nobody put on any airs, it was the social lines were still very rigidly drawn. And the social life of every class was strictly limited to that class. It was just a little democracy full of liberty, equality, and 4th of July. But there was an aristocratic taint. But nobody made any issue about it. Nobody seemed to realize that its existence there was an inconsistency. Well, now I hope I won't offend anybody. I won't talk about Southern cooking for a minute. I prefer Southern cooking, especially things like hot biscuits, cornbread, fried chicken. Now these things have never been properly cooked in the North. Perhaps no bread in the world is so good as Southern cornbread. And perhaps no bread in the world is so bad as the Northern imitation of it. Now the North no longer even tries to fry chicken. And this is good, because the art cannot be learned north of the Mason-Dixon line, nor anywhere in Europe. Now, in Europe, it is thought that the custom of serving certain breads blazing hot is American, but that's too broad. It's a custom in the South, but much less so in the North. Now in Europe they have this superstition that hot breads are unhealthy. That's kin to their silly superstition that iced water is unhealthy. Now they seldom need iced water and seldom use it. Nevertheless, their word for it is better than ours, for it describes the thing and ours does not. They say iced water, okay? Whereas our word simply describes a beverage that's made from melted ice. You know, it's a shame that so many people won't eat something just because it's thought to be bad for them. I doubt anything that the Creator has given us, taken in moderation, is bad for us, except possibly microbes. Yet there are people who strictly deprive themselves of every eatable, drinkable, and smokable which has in any way acquired a shady reputation. They pay this price for their health, and health is all they get for it. How strange it is. It's like paying out your whole fortune for a cow